All right, do you see my screen?
Yep, we can see it.
Perfect. As mentioned, we do have a Word document that covers everything I'm going to go over today. So anything you're still unfamiliar with or just need to repeat, rest assured the document will walk you through everything I've described. Um, so we're starting off with just signing in. And as a note, your login for your username must be lowercase, but your password is going to be whatever it would be. So only your username, it has to be lowercase. Then we'll be moving on to the dashboard, which is the first landing page you go to. Going to configure maybe some of the settings or widgets to help you track your workload. It provides a lot of tooling to check on your links, what's going on. And so that will be the dashboard overview. From there, we'll head on to the page editor, showing you the bare necessities for editing the page, adding content, publishing content, all that fun jazz. Afterwards, we're going to cover up the count tools that you may use once in a while to troubleshoot or to check history or any notifications. And then afterwards, we can take questions. Feel free to interrupt me if I go on anything that you're not familiar with. I'll be more than happy to explain or go over again. So please interrupt me. And let us start. Okay, so this is going to be your login. We'll be sharing the link in chat. And as I mentioned, it's going to be all lowercase. It's going to be your C number. Then afterwards is your password with it. So once we get in, we'll be right in your dashboard. I'm going to go under one of your users that we have so that we can see from their perspective of all their permissions they have. All right, so we're in as John Adams. So this is your dashboard. This is going to be the first thing you see when you log in to Cascade. We'll give you a notification of what's going on with the website, any tasks that you may have, workflows if you have that set up. It just provides a lot of the tooling and then just the first glance of what's going on. You have widgets, which are little modules to help you with your work. So you can have a link checker set up for your website. So if any links stop working, they go down, you have something to notify you. Any upcoming tasks you want to set up with that as well, or move around your notifications, you can. So like I said, this provides you a lot of tooling to track your workload and see what may be going on. And for the widgets you already have, you can edit them. So for example, if I want to take out a few of these, I can clean this up, go over to my widget, and then I can add something else in. And now I have a link checker. I can throw it onto my website, and then from there, it'll give me a report of any links that may be broken. For the rest of the page itself, you have my content, which is any content you've recently worked on. So if you're making edits to folders or pages, you can see the recent stuff you may have worked on, any drafts you have saved, any tasks. Like I said, it's going to be your content. It's going to be centered around what you could be doing. In the very top right, you have your search. The search here is for searching for assets. So if you're searching for a web page, maybe an image, maybe a folder, the search in the top right provides you a way to search for that. And that goes for any of the sites you have access to. In the very top right, you have your burger menu. We'll be going over some of the settings later, but just to get you familiar with the set. And in the top left is where you will be able to go to your website. You can either go to My Sites here, which will usually show you your recent sites you've worked on, or in the top left, go to a site. You can open this up and be able to check out what sites you need to work on or go to. So we have a sandbox set up for this for you guys to mess around in later on that you can mess up, destroy, add, edit, just to have you feel around how Cascade works. So once I click that, I'm now in my edit page for Sandbox DNRC. Wanted to ask, am I going too fast, a little too slow? Anything you guys want me to repeat or go over again?
Can you like slow down a little bit? Yeah, it seems like it's flying by for me, I guess.
Yeah, no worries. But starting again from the dashboard, after you log in, this will be your mainstay for everything you need to do. The widgets will just provide you information, so links, whatever sites you're working on, any notifications of things that may be going on. And then the top will be how you actually navigate. So the biggest thing you're probably going to be doing is logging in, seeing what's going on, any links are broken, any notifications, and then in the top left is where you get started and search up your website. And then for the content I've mentioned earlier in the top right, I'll go over again later, but just to know your dashboard, that you can also add widgets to help you track your workloads or any things you may be working on. And once we get you guys in there and playing it around, you'll be more familiar instead of just watching me click on random stuff. But rest assured, your dashboard is going to be where you get a first look of everything. Now, once we're in the dashboard, in the top left, we can go to our website. It's going to be Sandbox, is where we're going to be playing around in. Now we're in our page. So I'm going to go over like an overview of the page so you guys will be more familiar navigating first. So on the left side, you do have your folders and your pages and your file structure, kind of like Windows Explorer when you go to look for your own files. If you open up a folder, a lot of times there'll be more folders inside of that. So, and additionally, if you want to check where you're at in your folder, you can always look right here. So right now I'm in the root. I'm in the lowest point of the folder structure. So it's a Sandbox DNRC. If I were to click on, for example, calendars or view folder, it will now say I'm now inside the calendars that's inside of Sandbox. Very, very similar to Windows Explorer. So once you open a folder, you're now in that folder. And from there, I can continue to open up the folders inside. And as you can see, it will update it to show where I am currently. Now, this is important to know because if you were to add any content, it will automatically default to where you are currently. Now, if I wanted to come back out of this and go back to my root, I can once again click right next to it and hit view folder. Boom, I'm now back into my root. To give a brief overview, we have the different departments as their folders. So conversation, news, trust land, grants and loans, license and permits. And inside of them, they have their own folders and the pages or anything else they may have, including images. I can show another example. Forestry, for example, if you want to pull up grants, I can say forestry, open this up. I want to go to grants, so I'll open this. And then I'm going to work on FAQ. And now I can click on FAQ and it'll bring me right to this page to edit. And so everything's nested inside of each other. And with Cascade, if you keep clicking through stuff, eventually you'll get to where you want to. But once again, you just have to sit inside of it and play around with it just to see how it kind of works. So now I'm in the FAQ page itself, and this is under forestry, grants. This shows it right here at the top. So we want to go into, there we go. So we're going to make a page and walk through the steps of making a page. So let's say it's going over here. I'm a view folder. Now it's going to put me into this directory. And I want to go into About Us. And now I'm in the About Us folder. So anything I make will automatically go into this folder by default because that's where I am currently. So first start, to add any type of content like a page or a folder, you can go up here at the top and this little plus sign right here for add content. You can click on that. And this will give you a set of things to add. So if you want to add a folder or for other certain things like calendars, you can add an event. But for right now, we're going to keep it simple with a page. So I want to add a page. Click on that. Now, before the page is created, it's going to ask you a few questions for the setup. And since I'm in my About Us folder, this is where it's going to be placed, the About Us folder. And once again, it's going to show you the directory. Now we will set the page name, display name to just page right now. And the title of the document, we'll just call this page demo. We want to include this in the menu, and that just talks about just if you want to automatically attach it. Cascade has a lot of automated features, so it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you, so you can just focus on creating. We can ignore displayed breadcrumbs on this page. That's a separate concept. But just to start with, and to go over again, we went to a conversation folder, then we opened up About Us. While I'm inside of About Us folder, I wanted to create a page inside of it. So that's what we're currently at right now. Then if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the actual content to create. First off, it's going to ask if you want a banner image. That's the giant hero image when you open your site, the giant big picture. We want to say yes. From there, it's going to ask us a little bit more. It's going to ask us what image do you want and the alternative text in case this image can't display. And then from there, we can add our heading or any other content with it. To keep it simple for right now, I'm going to say, yes, I want a banner on this page. And then I'm going to choose my image. Now, to just choose an image, you can click on here to hit choose file. And on the right side, you'll see a few options here. Recent is going to show you the recent images you may be using or any stuff that you've recently placed or edit. And then start is anything you favorited. And then browse is what actually lets you go around in your folders. Lets you actually go around in your folders. So once again, as mentioned before, we're in the conversation folder. So we went from sandbox into this folder, and that's where we are currently. We want to go back one, so we can click right here at sandbox. And so this brings us back to the root. Once we're in the root where we can see all the folders and files again, we can now scroll down to say images, where all our images are going to be hosted at. And additionally, if you don't have the images you want on here, if you click onto upload, you can now upload directly from your folder. So if you have images on your PC that you want to throw in here, you can drag and drop, or you can simply click on it and pick your images. So mainly you're going to be using browse to look for the images you may have on the site already, ready to go. Otherwise, you can upload your image yourself. And if you scroll down here, once again, it's showing that we're still in the folder. That's what folder we want to put this image in. And so if we were to drag an image, it will default to going into here. Now to start off, we'll go to browse. And once again, we're on the root, the base of the all the folders. We're going to open up images. Now we have all these images that we already have all set up here, and I'm going to choose a banner. It'll show you a quick preview when you click on it. So I'm going to say I'm going to do banner 6 and hit choose. And now it's added in my image. And to go over again, if I click on it, it's now showing it in recent. So the image I've uploaded is now showing in recent. So in case I want to use it again, it will be easier. If I go to browse, it's showing that I'm already in the images folder, just in case you need to make changes again. And if you want to scrap that and get rid of that image, you can just click the X right here and then select again. Alternative text is required because in case the image can't display or for accessibility reasons for e-readers, it needs to know what should be put there instead. So I'll do the About Us banner demo. So if the image doesn't show for whatever reason, the text will come up instead. Right, looks good. So now we've added our banner. We'll move on to the bread and butter, which is rows. I'm gonna go over how rows work and columns, but I'm gonna have an image here real quick. So these are all rows, and in the orange you see here are the columns. And so by default, Cascade has them on space or space evenly. So each column has their own even space. So if I have 3 columns inside this row, each orange is going to display like this, all separate, 3 across the line. If I had 2, then they'll have 2 on both sides. But rows are going to be your bread and butter. If you want to add any content, you add a row first. And you can add your heading to a row, what heading size. So H1 being the highest, H6 being the lowest. And not to get into it, but usually you only want one H1 on a web page, and from there you give the H2, H3 for the lower content. And this is just so people who may use your e-reader can easily go through your content and navigate. Heading background color, the default colors we put in or themes, you can automatically just throw them in. So I want to do a background color of 1, which is the default blue. So this lets you just pretty much throw it in right away for any background color you want. Spacing, allowing you to control the spacing between other rows you may add. Because like I said, anytime you want to add content, you always start with a row. Bottom border, adding a bottom border to the row is an option you want to. For right now, we're just going to skip that. Container width, partial, fluid, and full. Partial means it will take up most of the web page horizontally. It's not going to be end to end, end of your screen to the other end of the screen. There's going to be a little gap. Fluid, if I remember correctly, actually, I don't remember correctly. I'm going to do full, for example. Full edge to edge. There is no space on the edge of your screen. It fills it up completely. So I'm going to start with that. Fluid, if I remember correctly, I believe it fills it up side to side, but it has a different response on mobile. So mobile screens will display differently for that row. This is important to know for the row itself, because like I said, that's what you start with. And when rows get smaller, it needs to also consolidate the columns inside so that they are still spaced out. So we want a full column. We want this entire or full row. We want this to take up the web page horizontally. Now to the next part is layout. It's asking me, hey, if you have columns inside of this, do you want it to the left? Do you want it to the right? Or you want it spaced around evenly? And to show my example again, if I had, for example, let's say, yeah, so we'll have, actually, these are not, say, it's not a correct way of showing it. But so for example, flex left will get smaller on the left first. So that means if I have something on the left, my column on the right will be able to take up more room. He gets priority. And the left side column is lower priority. So that means that the page gets smaller, the left side is going to lose more space before it affects the right side. And the best way to describe it is if one of these rows were getting smaller, the one on the right, this column here will probably stay the same size because it's priority. And the one on the left here will get smaller instead because that's the lower priority. And it's hard to describe these concepts without sitting there and playing around with stuff. But for right now, we're just going to keep it uneven, for example. And you can always look up for, if you are curious, and this will be included in the documentation, Flexbox, how rows work. Once you can visually see how they work and how they like collapse or expand, then it's easier to digest of what they actually do. And once again, just to go over again, we're just editing the row to start with. You can also reverse the order. So when rows get small enough, they stack stuff vertically, like how if you go to a mobile website, images or text are going to be on top of each other instead of horizontally. If you want to reverse the order of that, for example, if you have an image that comes for, got image on the left side, text on the right side. If you got a mobile phone, the image is going to be on top. If you want to reverse that and have the text on top, you would select this. And once again, it's features you can play around with in the sandbox once we have set up. Now moving on to the column. So the column is, once again, the little orange things here. You put content inside of that, and when web pages changes size, it moves around to look aligned correctly, depending on if you have it on even or left or right. But columns is going to be what you put your content inside of. And once again, that column sits inside of a row. So we're going to do one column for right now. So that means it gets the full width of the row. So that means it gets it all to itself. So it doesn't have to share with any other columns. Is there anything you want me to repeat? It's really hard to describe how some of this stuff works, so I try to use visuals as best I can. I'll take the silence as okay. So we have our column, and inside the column you have what's called a widget. And the best way to describe this widget is pretty much like a tool or something to use to make your content. So you can add a heading, once again, heading size, and now the type of widget. Depending on what you're trying to make, let's start with this WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. It's a simple editor that lets you create text, add images, add video. It's very similar to Microsoft Word at the top. You can align your text to the right, make the text bigger, all that jazz. And so if you want to bold, italic, align it, even do numbered list or bullet list, you can. You can also add links. So if you want to add a link somewhere, you can as well. Add an image or even add an entire video. So this will be how you create a good chunk of your content. If you want to create text, links, images with text, WYSIWYG is going to be your mainstay for that. The other types of stuff we have, for example, is a carousel. Um, this is pretty much on the pages where you see images that take up a wide spot. And if you click onto the left or right of the image, it will move it to left or right, like a carousel, or a better way, like a lazy Susan. You can move it to left or right and see of different images. So I'm gonna start with the WYSIWYG for right now. And I will show you both once I create this so you can get a good idea of what it looks like. So here I am with the WYSIWYG. I'm gonna put some fake text in here. So I'm gonna put some fake text, grab all this fake text. I'm gonna align it to the center, maybe make the font a little bit bigger, and then I'm going to bold it. And then boom, I now have bold text taking up a good chunk of space now. So now that we have our page we're making, that's in the About Us folder. We're going to have it included in the menu. We are going to start with a banner image so that there's a nice big image at the start, kind of like a landing page. And after we added our banner, we have right below it a nice row. This row is going to be the full size of the screen, so edge to edge, no gaps. It's going to be even, so no matter what columns I add inside, they all have equal spacing. Inside of that row, I only have one column, so that means it gets free reign of the entire row to use. It doesn't have to share it with any other column. Inside of that column, I have a WYSIWYG editor, which is allowing me to put text in. And like I said, our Word documents, the document we're going to give you to help describe this walks you through with images, step by step, exactly what I'm doing. So I know this is a lot of information to digest, but rest assured, you'll be able to go through it on your own pace once we have that sent out. But just to show how this process looks. So I think everything looks good here. I have my widget here that is a WYSIWYG editor, and I've put some text in there. Now there's only one column, so it should be in the center. Everything here looks good. I can go up here in the top right with the three little dots, and I can say, all right, I'm gonna check content and submit. And this gives me a comment to put on here. So if people look what I did, I can put a comment saying, oh, adding text, updating text, fixing a link, so they know what I did. For right now, I'm just gonna leave it to default. I'm gonna hit check content and submit. So it's gonna check for spelling, any broken links, any accessibility issues. Spelling is gonna trigger because it's Latin, so it doesn't understand it. So I say, okay, everything's good to go. Say okay. And now it should bring up the page. Okay. So we now have our page. We now have our banner right here. That's the one we added. And right below that is our row. And remember, we set our row to a background of that color. So it automatically applied that blue, and it's full. So it's covering from edge to edge. So there's no gap. And right here, we have our one column of text. And since it's just one, it takes up the entire row. It gets it all to itself. And it is responsive. So if my screen gets smaller, let's say on like, an iPad or a phone, it automatically adjusts its size for me. So it gets smaller and it starts stacking the text vertically to compensate for that. And now that we have added a row with a simple column, I'm going to show you another example with the row. So to start, now that we have our page, and it actually, the directory here now says we're now out of the About Us folder, and instead we're now on that page we made. So it's just showing us where we are currently. If I wanted to change what page I'm currently on, I can simply left click another page. And right here at the top, once again, it shows I switched places. So to go back to our demo. So now to edit a page. So up here in the top, we have a little pencil, which is edit. We're going to click on that and open this up. So once again, we're kind of in the same area where we once created our page. We see our banner, we see our row we created. I'll go to our row and I want to add another column. So now it has to share the space with something else. So I'm going to click the green right here to add a new row or a new column. So this will now create another blank column for me to use. Now you get these little arrows here. Now the arrows shows if you want to move stuff up, move stuff down. So if you make an image on this column, and instead of having on the right side, I can move this up, clicking here. And now this column is on top of the other one. And so now this one is priority or first. So now I have my new column, and in case I want to delete it, I can always hit the X and it'll remove it. And if I want to make another column, I can. Now, once again, once I open my column, it has another default widget set to a WYSIWYG editor and blank text. Nothing's here. So now I want to copy over my text. So with my new column I just created inside the widget, I'm going to put in my text I did last time. So I'm doing the exact same thing. And now once again, I hit that. And so if you don't want to check the content submit for anything, and you can always hit submit directly, but it's always safe to do check content submit just in case you do have anything that's, misspelled or broken links. Okay, looks good. Hit finish. Once I submitted it, I just refresh the page to see my new changes. Okay, and now that they have to share spots evenly, they both have their own side. They both get 50% because there's two of them. If I add another column, they each get 33% or 1/3 of this row. But since it's just two and I want them even, they both have to split it and share it evenly. So now I have that. And if I were to make the size smaller, show right here. So it turns into a row, it's horizontal, and at a certain point, it makes it vertical to make it easier to read for any smaller screens. And so this is already automated to make responsive. There we go. We got our first row with our text. Each one is a column. They have to share it evenly, so they both get half. Now to the next part, I'm going to show you another example. So once again, I'm in my Pages demo. I'm going to go to Edit right here at the top. So I want to make another row. So that I'm done making that content, I make another row, and right below that is another one. And from here, I can make my changes. I don't want to have more than one H1. I'll say fake heading. I want the heading's background color to be a different one, and then I still want the rest of the row to be blue. So this will just change the heading color, which is just going to be the text above it. And this is going to change the main content, like where this text is right here. It's going to change the background color. I want to do full again, so screen to screen. And then for the layout to be, let's say I want to put this to the right. So that should be, the right side shrinks sooner than the left side. And I will show you that. Once again, we get our starter column, just one. I want to have two of them instead. So hit the plus. I now have two columns to work with. And these two columns are sharing a single row. So we'll say for this first one here, I'm going to put more fake text just to fill that spot up. But for my second column in here, I'm going to set this to a carousel. So now a carousel lets me put a whole bunch of images for people to cycle through. It's a good way to show off, images that you want to have text or news events or anything that you want to show a lot of in a certain spot. Now we have our carousel. I'm going to say, okay, we have our one slide. You can add as many slides as you want, but it just starts you off with one slide, and every slide is usually an image. I want to at least have 3 slides. So I'm going to hit the plus right next to the slide and hit it one more time. And boom, I now have 3 slides. And you can always check to see which one it is, because it says this one's the first one out of the 3. This one's the second one, and this is the third one out of the 3. So they're all nested into each other. And once again, just to go over, we have our new row. We have 2 columns, and you can always collapse them by clicking on them. So you can always make them a little bit smaller and easier to read everything else. So we have 2 columns in this row. So if I open up this row, I want to go to my second column. I want to go to my carousel. And now I want to start adding images. Now with carousel, the cool thing is you can also add links. And I'll show you that in a second. So I'm going to go find some fake images to throw in here. Once again, I can click choose file. I want to, there's my recent image I used, but I want to go to browse. And then it says, hey, you're in the About Us folder, and there's no images in here. So I'm going to have to go back. So I'm going to go back to the root where everything is. I'm going to go to my images. And down here in my images, I'm going to look for just an example image to use. So let me go on to the other side here. Okay, so I'm gonna use this with the treatment pond. So I'm gonna hit choose. Okay, that's the image it has in there. And for the text that goes with it, do you want it centered to the left, center, or the right? I'm just gonna have some example text here, and I'm gonna have that centered. So now, next is the link. So anyone who clicks on the image can be redirected to something. So if you want to show off an event or something that's going on, you can have an image for it, and users can click on that image to go to where you want them to go. So you have two type of links. You have internal and external. And I'm going to take a quick pause here. Anything you guys want me to run over again or to explain? Good? Okay. So we're still in this slide for the carousel. So we're on our first slide. I want to have an internal link. So an internal link is a link that goes somewhere to a Cascade site, particularly your own site. So if you want to redirect someone to a different department, you can. So I can go to internal link, click here. So now it lets me send people to wherever I want within my site. And so these are the recent pages I've worked on, and said I want to go to browse. And once again, the last thing I was in images because I was uploading that treatment pond image. I want to go back to the root, see all the folders in all the different places. And I'm like, okay, if someone clicks on this image, I want to send them to Board of Oil and Gas. I opened up that folder, and then here's all the pages inside. And I said, okay, if you click on this image, you can contact them. I'm going to send you to the contact page. Now I hit choose. Boom. So now if they click on the image, right here on the bottom, you can see where they'll be sent to. They're going to be sent to the Board of Oil and Gas, and they're going to be sent to their contact page. Additionally, you can always open the link in a new tab just to make it convenient so they don't lose where they are. So I'm going to say yes. So if they click on it, it'll open it up in a new tab. Next, for my next slide, I'm going to go a little bit faster on this now that we've seen how it works. On my next slide, once again, choose File. I'm going to click on my treatment pond image, hit OK, text align center, or fake text. And I'm saying, oh, for this link, I'm going to send this externally. I'm going to send this somewhere outside of our website. So if I want to send them to maybe some other documentation or to a different website that might be on Cascade, I can set up to an external link, or even I can send them to, let's say, just Google itself. Now I can set the external link here. I don't have anything in mind to really send them to, but I can say, actually a good example will probably be rules.mt.gov. So we'll grab this. So I'm just grabbing the name up here. I'm going to put this right there. So now if they click on the image, they'll be sent right to rules. And I'm going to say open a link in a new tab. Boom. So now the second image in my slide, if you click on it, they'll send you to rules. I'll add one more image for my third slide. Once again, it's going to use the same image, fake text. And then this one, I'm not going to have a link. So I'm going to select no link. There we go. Now to go over our structure again, just to see, I have a new row that has a color background change for the text, the heading text I have on there. And then for the actual main content, I changed it to a blue. I want this to take up the entire screen's width. I want the content to be on the right side, that's on the right side to shrink sooner, so that if the size gets smaller, the left side stays bigger. And I'll show you that. And I have two columns in here in this row. I got one column that's displaying text, and I have another column that's displaying a carousel of images, and each image or each slide has a link to somewhere except the last one. So now we have this. So now we kind of have what we want. Everything looks good. Once again, I'll click the three dots at the top right and check content and submit. And everything I'm discussing here, from adding content, editing content, will be included in their documentation. So you can just follow along, follow the steps with the images, and you can create exactly what I'm doing. Okay, we now added our carousel with our text. Okay, so since I have this on the, let me have this set to 1 second. Sorry. Okay, so the right. All right. So since I have this set to the right for this row, that means anything on the right side is going to shrink sooner before the left side. And you can see this here. This text here, it gets about 2/3 or 66% of the row. And then this one right here only gets 1/3 because I gave priority to the left side. So if you want to make your content staggered, like have a big image and then a small amount of text right next to it, this is an example of how you would set that up. So now I got my carousel, so I can click on these little arrows right here, and usually it'll change the image with it, but for right now it just shows that the text is changing. And so if I click on learn more, it will redirect me to the link. So I clicked on that, and now I'm in Board of Oil and Gas, and I'm now on their contact page, just like that. And so it's very easy to set up ways to send your users to places. Go back to where we were and see now it's showing us, hey, you're in bog/contact. So gives you a bearing of where you're at. So I'm open up this folder. I'm gonna open up About Us, and I'm gonna click on my page demo. So now I should be back to where I was. Boom. So, and see here, my fake heading, I have a different color for it. So that's a good way to separate content, is to change the color for the heading. And now to show you when I shrink it. So as you can see, the left side still stays bigger. When I collapse it, now the image goes on top and the text goes on bottom. And to me, you think the left side would go on top first, but since we've said the right side is going to be the lower priority, it's going to be moved around first. If I wanted to reverse that and say, hey, I don't want the image to be on top, I want the text to be on top, well, I can just go back to edit, go to the row that I was working on. Then I can go to my column. The reverse. I just lost it. Okay, for this one. Showing on the other. Oh, it's only on even. My bad. So if you have it selected to left or right, where one side gets the majority of the row, you can't reverse the order of it, but under even you can. So for that image we had earlier, if we wanted the image to be on bottom, I would simply select it to the left. So now the text is lower priority. My text is on the left side. Just to go over again, I might know it might be a bit confusing. So we got our row. We're now switching it to the left side. So now the left side is going to get smaller and the right side is going to stay bigger. And since the very first thing I have in my row is this text, this guy is going to be smaller and he's going to be moved around first if the screen changes. So now I have this set to the left instead of right. I hit submit. I don't want to check content because I already know what change I made. Hit refresh. Now if I go back to it, now the left side is smaller and now the right side gets priority. So he gets to have 66% of the space or 2/3 of it. And now this text gets smaller. Now, if I shrink the size again, so once again, if I get smaller screen, the text now goes on top instead of the row. So you can control how images respond to users in different screens. And like I said, it's easier to play around and see how it works, but just showing us for an example of how this would look and what examples it would be used in. So now we can add our page, we can now add content, and to just go over one more time, we have our page, we have our banner added, we have 2 rows set up. The first row has 2 sets of 2 columns, and both of them are half and half, so they both share a side, and each one of them has text inside. And the row below that, I have it so that the left side only gets 1/3 of the screen, and that this text here that I have goes on top or it shrinks sooner compared to my other side where I have my images. So when the screen gets smaller, he goes on bottom. And that changes too if you add another column. Just to show that, let me add another column. So now I have 3 columns. And once again, I'm gonna probably put some fake text in here. Grab this. Grab this. So now I added a third column into this row, so it's getting kind of cramped now. I'm like, okay, here's my third column. I'm going to hit submit right here at the top. Refresh my page. Scroll down, and here we are. So it's going to display evenly, but if I were to shrink, you can still see it maintains it. But since there's an odd amount of text, it's going to keep them even. And when it shrinks, it's going to start prioritizing of what goes on top. So by default, rows are going to try to keep things even just so it looks nice. And I'm sure if I were to add another row, it would change and it would start to make the text smaller, the image is smaller. So, but we're going to keep it even for right now. That's usually the best to go to. And so all these columns here, they're all even. They all share their own space. They're good to go. And my row on top is just two of them. They both share half and half. So boom, I've added content, I've added text, I've added images. Those images now go to different websites. So now for the little other stuff that is important to know. So once again, I'm in my page under About Us, under Sandbox and Conversation. The next step to know is versions. So before I moved on, is there anything you guys want me to repeat, go over again, or to adjust? I know that's a lot of content, and I just want to show you guys visually at least some of the process. And once you get around playing in there, trying it out, adding content, it's going to be very easy to pick up. So if we're all good to go, we can move on to the next part, and that is versions. So versions are how you control different versions of the site. So it's say, oh, let's go back to version 2 when I added that image. I can show you with this. So if in the top right, you have more. And from here, you can go to versions. So this will show you the history of changes you've made. So this was when I first created the website. This is when I added that first row, added another row, and it tells you, the comments I've added in here shows you that. So it's like, I really don't like that second row. So I'm just gonna go back to that first one I made. So I'm gonna click here on this check mark. This is version 2. And so this is when I added that first row. It's gonna get rid of all these steps I've done here. And I'm gonna let's go back to this one. Additionally, if you want to compare, you can also compare with the current version. So if I click this, I can now compare what I currently have to what I had before. So here in the green, this is what was added. And so it's just telling me what was the difference between the two. And the main thing was this row I added here. So I'm gonna go back to my version. So I'm gonna go back to the top right and go to, I'm gonna restore this version. So now I like this version. I like the older one. The changes I made I didn't like, so I want to go back. So now I went back. The column is gone, and I'm back to where I first started when I made that first row. And it showed this again, because I know versions can be a little bit confusing, especially when I first started. So I'm gonna click on versions again in the top right. It's gonna say, today I made a modification. And this one, I believe, was when I made the left. Oh, yeah, so that's when I made it to even. But so right now, I'm back to version 2. That's what I selected. I clicked here, and to go back a version without comparing, I can just click this, and it's going to bring me back. And the good thing is you can also go forward. So let's say I go back to one where I added text, and I'm going to go, wait, what I did earlier was correct. I can now just go back to the most recent versions I've made. I can click here at the top. I'm going to go back to where I originally was with all my content I added. Oh, there it is. I can now go back and forth to every change I've made. It holds up to 20 maximum. So if you start making more and more and more changes, eventually all those old things you've done, you won't be able to go back to. But just to show again, click here in the top right. I go to my versions, all the changes I've made so far. And I want to say, let me go back to when I first created the page. So the very first thing I did was when I created that page, I want to go right back to it when it was completely new. I want to restore this version here at the top. I'm going to load this up. And there we are. It's the very first thing I started with. And so I can go back to where I once started, retry something. And if I want to go back forward, I want to go to the most recent changes I've made and say, I think those are correct. I can click the versions again, go here and say, oh, this is when I made the rows even. I remember that. I'm going to go back to that. I'm going to go restore that. And now here I am again. I'm going to be in the most recent iteration I've made. And here's all my content. So versions are very nice to go back to changes you've made or even go forward in changes as well. So you can always switch between the two. So now that I've been able to go to my versions, some other things to move into is next is going to be publishing. So once you're done with, when you think you're done with your content, everything looks good in your eyes, all this is in Cascade. So only people who have access to edit this website can see your changes. No user or any citizen can't see your page yet. So I'm going to publish, and here it's going to be at the top, little cloud symbol with a check mark. I'm going to publish it. So this is going to push it to the actual site itself. A few things here. Here at the top, if you want to publish this at a different date, how publishing works in Cascade is there's a queue. Usually you can do 2 publishes at the same time before you get put on the wait list. So sometimes if you think a lot of publishing is going on, it's very busy, or there's a massive publish someone is doing of very, very, very large website that's taking forever, and you don't want to, sit there and wait for it. Instead, you can select, a quieter time. So like, okay, I'm done with my changes. Everything's busy right now, so I'm gonna have this automatically set to publish. Let's say I want to do Saturday at, like 12 a.m. I can now select that, and boom, I can now publish this later. So now 12 a.m. on Saturday, these changes are going to be published and they're going to show up on the website. Just for right now, we're going to just do an instant publish. Generate publish report. I will show you later in your notifications of how to see the publish report. It just tells you what things happened, if anything bad happened. It just tells you what was going on under the hood. You can ignore this. Just keep it default to the check mark and just making sure that it gets published. The content does. So you never have to touch that. Now, destinations are important. So you have 2 destinations. You have a production site. This is the main big site, what every normal or every person sees. So every citizen that may access your website. This is production. This is the real deal. Then you have your test website. This is something you only have access to or other fellow developers. The test website is a good way to check if your content is working fine, because you don't want to publish something to production and it looks really weird or jarring and you go, oh, whoops. Do it to test first. Looks good, and then we do prod. So we're going to do test first. We're going to send this to the test website. And it says this will be published to the test to make sure everything looks good. So what I'm doing right now is this web page, this page right here, is not on the site whatsoever. If I try going to this link right here on that DNRC website, it'll give me a 404. It doesn't exist. So I'm gonna publish it. Here at the bottom, you get what's called a publish queue. So I'm gonna open that up. So publish queue tells you what's being published right now. So no one's in here. It's just me. So already finished before I could even show you. There's nothing being published right now. And when it shows something being published, it'll show you how much percentage of it is done. And once it's done, it will move out of the way and the next thing comes up. So if you feel like you published something and it's not moving, I do recommend checking out the publish queue to see if it's stuck or waiting or still publishing. And I'll show you how to get to that shortly. So now we've published it. So we can now go to our test website and to take a look. So one quick way to get to the page you just made, here in the top right, we can click more and we can now go to live, and this will take you directly to the live website. By default, it will take you to the production website. So it's not going to show anything because we didn't send anything to the production website. We sent it to the test website. So in order to go to the test website, I can go right up here, type in test dash. Oh, here we are. So now we're on the test website and we're on that page we just made. So here we are. We got our banner. We got our text. Got our carousel. It's all here. If I click on learn more, the links work. So now the test website looks good. Nothing looks broken. Nothing looks janky. everything looks fine. So now, before I close out of that, the next thing to do is to know, in case you publish something that you want to take back, you can unpublish it as well. And so unpublished is exactly the same. You just take it down from the live website, and so that it's only on Cascade again that you can see it. So here in the top right, you can open up more, and right here it says unpublish. And just the exact same process. You can say, oh, where do you want to take this down from? Oh, I want to take it down from test, because that's where we just sent her stuff. So I want to take this down from test website. I don't need this to be up right now. I need to make more changes. And you select test, everything else looks good. Unpublish. Once again, it's going to be queued up, and it's going to be taken down from the live website or the live test website. And this is important to use. So in case you do publish something to the production website and you find out you may have some broken links and you don't want users or anyone clicking on, you can take it back so that it doesn't show up anymore. Make your changes and then publish it out again so that you make sure that no one clicks on something they weren't supposed to. So now that I unpublished it, I took it down from the live website. I can refresh the page. Now it's gone. I took it down. So that's what unpublishing and publishing does. So we're just going to publish this again. But this time I'm going to include the production website. So I'm just going to publish to both because we already know what it looks like on test. So I'm going to select both now. So now this is going to go to the production website. This is the real deal. Now we're in sandbox, so this is just a fake, fake scenario. But now I'm going to publish it to production. So now if I want to see it on production, I can click more on the top right. And this is all included in the documentation of how to navigate to your page, check your work, all that jazz. And so if there's a lot to digest here, we've included every detail I'm talking about right now. So publishing is probably done now. I can click on live website and it takes me right to my page I made. So here I am. This is the live website. People, if it was the normal scenario, normal citizens can see this and users too, and they can take a look at this and click on stuff. And so now I have this up. And so that's how I publish a website. And to go through the workflow again, just to show it, I first started in the root when I got to my web page. I went to conversation, click on the folder, and I went to About Us, and I got into the About Us folder. I made a page by adding the content up here. Add content, add a page. I made a page demo. I can click on that to open it up. I can now make my edits. So when I was in my page demo, I made my edits. I've added content. I've added 2 rows. The first row has 2 columns of text. The third row has 3 columns of text with one that has images. I published everything to the both test website, this is a check, and the production website. And now here I am with that done. So now to go into another thing, so to move folders and files around. So there's 2 ways of going about this. Oh,
Can
yes.
I ask a question quick? Okay, so
Absolutely.
on publishing, is there a reason you wouldn't have it both in the test and the live? I assume I guess in my mind you would start by publishing it to the test site, right? And then you'd move and then you'd publish it to the live site, but you'd probably want your test to look as much like the live site as possible, right? So if it's in the live site, it should be in the test, right?
Exactly. It's a good workflow to have to keep both test and prod identical, because in case you want to test stuff on test, it's best to keep that as current as possible so it reflects what may go on in the production site. Otherwise, if you have a test site that might have not been updated in like 5 weeks, you throw something on there, you say, hey, it looks good, and you throw it on the production website, which is a lot more different because it's 5 weeks ahead, it might look broken. So for good practice, it's best to try to keep it updated the best you can. But rest assured, with versioning, you can always dial it back if you need to. But yes, it is best practice to kind of keep both updated as much as you can with each other so that it looks accurate when you take it out on both. So that is a good question. So usually when you go to publish, and there's another way to check too. Here in the top right, if you click more, You can always do a full screen preview. So if you want to take a look at this without all the editing stuff, you can do a full screen preview. And what this will do, it'll generate a quick little page for you. And so no one else has access to this. This is like a temporary web page. And so now you can review it and go, okay, things look good, looks formatted. And so this is a good, quick way to check for a website to make sure things look, proportional. You still want to send this to the test website, however, just to see how it interacts with the rest of the web page. Because just in case, let's say you make a web page and it's connected to another page of yours, maybe it's pulling data in, maybe it's sharing a link to. If you go to the full site preview, you can't interact with anything else on the website. It's isolated. But if I publish it to test, it's now mingling. It's now with the full entire website. It's the true depiction of how your web page will look like. So full screen preview just to get a quick look. If you think it looks good, publish it to test. If test looks good, publish it to prod. And it's usually the process for that. And once you get to editing content, testing it out, you'll be a lot more familiar with the workflow and process. So now we have our page demo, everything looks good. So now another thing you can do, if you can scroll over your folders and your pages over here to the left side, and you can right click on them. And so you can do a few things here. Let's see if I can zoom in a bit just to make it easier. So it shows us the path where we are. So DNRC, there's About Us page. There we are. We can view this in the live website. We can edit it. Also, the same button right here, you can edit and publish. Same thing here. These I'll show in a second. You can move, you can rename the file, you can copy the file, you can delete it, and you can also unpublish it. Here's more administrative controls, but this is where you can also check for versions as well. And then if included, you can also mark it for or schedule for a review. But for the main stuff, you're going to be mainly right clicking on this to move it around or copy it is the main usage. So for example, I want to move this around. I can also drag and drop. So if I can grab this and I can put it to BOG. And it's going to ask me, hey, do you want to move this page there? And additionally, it's saying, hey, you're moving a page to a different section. Do you want to unpublish it from the website so people don't go to the wrong page? Because when I move it, it's not going to be under About Us anymore. It's going to be under BOG. So when users go to check out the About Us page on a saved link, it's not going to be there anymore. It's going to be moved. So it's important to make sure you unpublish anything you move here so that when you do move it over, oh, we have someone with a question?
Yeah,
Totally
this is John Adams. Just to add, the way we're setting up permissions in here, the folders will be restricted. They wouldn't be able to move a page to a folder that they're not, they don't have permissions to, correct? Just want to check on that.
I would have to check on it, but I believe there is a way to set that. I think our intended goal is to have everyone have their own group with their own department.
Right.
So if you work in BOG, you can only move stuff in BOG.
Right. Okay.
And so that you can't mix with other people's work. We'll go over the permissions will be a little bit more concrete once we move into that, but that's our main concern is to make sure that you have boundaries, but still be able to work in the environment you're supposed to. And
awesome.
And if this goes for anything you move, if you move it around anything, even in your own department, you always want to make sure you unpublish it because it's going to be in a new area. So even if I move this around to, let's say I want to move this demo to training and education, I can just drag and drop it right on that folder. And I still want to unpublish it because it's going to be in a new type of folder. So that's one way to move something. You can always right click on it and hit move. And then it's going to say, hey, where do you want to send this? And I'm going to click this here at the top. And now it's bringing up this choose a folder tab again. It's very similar to when you upload an image. It's going to show me the recent folders I was working in. And I'm going to go to browse. And I'm going to say, I want to put this into training and education. I'm going to hit choose. Boom. I can now send it over there. Now, I'm going to keep it in here just for convenience. So now I can move that over. Now, if I want to copy something, I can just right click on this again, go to copy. And now I can, instead of moving something, it's the exact same way, I can now copy something over. So I can give it a new name. So new copy page. Where do I want to send this to? It will force you to name stuff correctly. So you can't have spaces. So I'm going to say new copy page with dashes. I want to move this to a new folder. So I'm going to go to browse. I'm going to put this in training and education. I'll select the radio button right here. That looks good. Hit choose and copy it right over. So now it'll copy everything my page has and bring it right over to training and education. So now if I refresh my page, training and education, if I open up that folder, and lo and behold, there's my new page demo in that folder. And now I can just copy and move pages around very easily. And like I said, it's very set up like how your files are on your PC. You got the folders, you got the stuff, you can drag and drop, you can delete it, you can rename it, all that stuff. And usually right-clicking on it will give you the full menu. And so you can see everything from versions, renames, move, all that jazz. So moving on to the next part, a little bit more administrative controls or account tools more of. So in the top right, you're going to have my content. If you click on that, my content is going to show you recent stuff you worked on. So if I click here to recent, and this is in the top right, this is going to be kind of your account controls. I went to my content. I'm going to go to recent. So this is going to show you, show you the recent stuff I've worked on. So if I worked on something a while back I can't seem to find, I can just go to my recent work. Any drafts I have saved. So if I'm working on something and I don't submit it, and I can show you an example of that shortly. It can show me what drafts I may have not submitted or may have not cleaned up as well. So you're like, someone's asking you like, hey, you have a draft that's set up on this page. Do you have anything important in it? So you guys don't conflict with the content you submit. You can go and check your drafts, make sure you don't have anything up. Workflows, if you do have workflows set up, it'll tell you the process of where you're at, who's currently on it, and who needs to be handed off to. Any tasks that are assigned to you as well. So this gives you your little bit more of account controls and kind of like what's going on with your own work. Next up is going to probably be, we're going to click on the burger menu in the top right, the 3 bars. We're going to go to reports. So reports gives you, once again, places to check up and stuff. So if you want to check broken links, it'll tell you any of the pages you have set up on, like, hey, what links aren't working? Have they been fixed, etc. Very helpful way to, once your site gets bigger, to see what's working and what's not. Especially for DNRC, if you're going to have, a lot of those pages, a link checker is going to be a saving grace in case anything does go down. Content that may be up for review, if you have that set up, you can see what may needs to be reviewed by you. Additionally, you can always export this as Excel sheet. This is just little stuff. This isn't going to be, it's hard to say that any of you are going to probably touch this, but just in case, just to go over it. Google Analytics statistics. So this, if this is set up, you can create a connector with it. Just a statistics page from Google Analytics. And then last is up here is stale content. So any assets that haven't been updated in a while or hasn't been changed up for a bit, it will tell you saying, hey, this content is a little bit older. Do you think it's still up to date with what you have? All that stuff. And you can set for a specific, like time period, like, oh, after 2 months, anything in this folder, give me a report of anything that hasn't been updated or been edited by a user. And so that's something you can set up as well. And this is for much later on, once you get settled in, once you get comfortable, these are extra tools to help you with your workload. And then from here, so let's go back to our site. So in the top left, we can go to our site again, Sandbox DNRC. So if I want to check if something's publishing or if it's stuck in publishing, once again, I can click the burger menu up here in the top right. I can go to publish queue. So now this will tell me if anything that's being published, anything that's uploading, if there's a queue for it. And this is also in the documentation, the troubleshoot stuff. If you don't see anything being changed on the website you're working on, first things the first, check on the queue. So top right, publish queue, and then see if it's stuck or still downloading or uploading. As well as up here, you can also check out, I don't think sites would be available. Actually, that's probably just for me. But yeah, so top right, you can check reports, see what's going on, publish queue to make sure your content's actually going through. And just to go over just one quick summary. So we'll start from the beginning. And this is just a quick overview of like a workflow. I logged in, here I am. I'm gonna go get some work done on the page. I'm gonna go to Sandbox DNRC, and this is gonna be under my sites because I've recently opened this. So I'm gonna click on it. Okay, here I am. I'm ready to work. I'm gonna open up, let's say, I'm gonna open up this folder. So I'm gonna click View Folder. Let me see, where do I need to be? I'm gonna go to Training and Education. So I'm gonna open up that folder again. Cool, these are the pages that are in there. Let me go open up Program Resources. So I can click on either one of these. Click on Program Resources. Cool. Now I have my page open. It's empty, doesn't have any content. I can click Edit at the top. From here, you can add your content, your rows, any name changes you want. I say, okay, the content looks good. I can now hit Preview Draft. So a Preview Draft isn't added to Cascade quite yet. On your end, you can see the changes. It lets you preview it on your end, and it lets you discard whatever draft you have or just submit your draft. And this is a good way just to see changes real quick. Now, if I were to leave this page, my draft will still sit on this page, and other users who come to edit that are going to see that, hey, you know, John still has a draft up on this page. You want to check in with him to make sure he's not trying to change anything, so you guys don't have anything that conflicts. So I'm going to discard my draft instead of submitting it. Because if you go to submit, it's that same thing where it's going to enter your comments and check your content or just submit it. But instead, I'm just going to discard it. I don't want to make any changes. So that's an example of a draft. That just comes from when you go to edit, preview draft. So if you want to preview something, instead of automatically submitting it right away and see how it looks, you can always do a preview draft if you like. And so that's what a draft would look like in the settings. And once again, if you want to see if there's a draft up on the page or if you have any drafts up, you can go to My Content, because this is something you've made, and you can go to drafts. And it should show up in there of, hey, you currently have something you're previewing, but you haven't submitted it yet. Well, that's a prime example of how that would be used. Let's see. So I went over moving assets, publishing, version history. Okay, so is there any questions or certain content you may run over again, or anything that hasn't been explained well? I know it's a lot, so we do have a Word document going over everything I did with step-by-step processes with nice pictures and arrows. So rest assured, we're not going to leave you out with just videos and saying good luck. No questions?
I have a few
gosh.
questions.
Oh, no, go ahead, please.
Sorry. Okay, so
No,
I
you're
noticed when you went to add a page, there was an option for grant. What is that?
So for the grant functions, I know this is something we're working on the side. So here it was mentioned that we need to have a grant finder. And so
Perfect.
in that as well, that allows you to create a grant. Same thing with calendar. We have one where you can create an event. And this is stuff later on once we get that properly set up and you guys playing around with it. So for example, oh, sorry, go ahead.
So that grant would then publish it to the grants and the agency-wide grants and loan page, right? Is that what I'm
I
understanding?
believe so. I have to make sure, but yeah, it's
Yes.
designated for the grants. Yes. I was making sure I was thinking of something else, but yes. So if I were to create a grant here, it'll be automatically added to that kind of data. And from here, I can add the title of it, what type, project type, description of it, what date, any links, and then automatically be merged with that. And so you can just pretty much add any type of grant you want, and it'll automatically be included in that system. And so once you added it, people can now look it up, find it, and use it. And so that abstracts a lot of the effort. So you can just open that up, throw a grant in there, automatically gets uploaded to that. And now users, and once you publish it, users can see it and work with it. Same thing with events for calendars. If you want to add an event for a calendar page, say like a barbecue or something, you can add that description. When does it start? When does it end? And in that calendar page, it will show up. Similar to like if you use Google Calendars or the Microsoft Calendars, it's a function that we have put into Cascade so that you're able to just add that in. And from there, you can publish it to your production site. So you don't have to have like a separate way of adding dates. So that's what it does. So yes, in short, yes, it just makes a grant or makes an event for your calendar. I just want to make sure the specifics to it. So I was making sure I wasn't giving you the wrong information. And was there another question you had?
Okay, so just follow up on that one. So then for the events, so we can schedule them to turn them off so that, let's say, we're talking about like, hey, these, grants are available until the end of October, and then end of October, that announcement just drops off because that event is over. Is that how that works?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
If you go to an event and open this up, you can have a start date and an end date as well. And so when you pick these two things, it will show up only for that time. And once it's over, it doesn't show up on that calendar day.
Perfect.
So it is set up how it's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, there must be a little delay. My internet's probably a little slow today. I'm
No, you're
working
good.
from home, so do we know? So for pictures and things like that, do we have the, like the size, the dimensions, all of the details on like what type, what sizes for, a banner and what
Mhm.
styles and things like that?
Yes. Yes. If you go to, when we go to my page demo real quick and I go to edit again, it will tell you. So if I go to banner image, it says images are best at 1600 by 200 for banner without text. And so it'll tell you what's a good size for that.
Well,
And I
and
believe we'll have some banners. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Chase. This is Lori. I was gonna pop in too and say
Yeah.
we're not done with your theming yet. And to be really honest, that will still be there and it'll be updated, but those might change, just so you know. We are literally working on your theme right now because like what you guys are playing in the sandbox is not at all how your site's gonna look. We literally just copied another site's theme really quick to have something for you guys to play in. So what you're looking at, like with the yellow and the gold and stuff, is not your site and not even what it's going to look like. But it is a sandbox, and the reality is on the back end, everything's the same as far as how you upload, how you create pages, all that good stuff.
But if we go in
Exactly.
there and create some pages, the pages themselves should look the same or be able to just easily transfer over.
Once we apply a theme, all the pages are going to follow that theme. So if I create another page, it's going to look exactly like this unless I change the banner. And so once we have the theme applied, anytime you create a new page, it will kind of be a set template based off the theme we made. So the colors, the nav, a lot of the core stuff that needs to be kind of consistent across the board is going to be there. And what you're doing is going to be adding the content in between the footer and the nav. And like as Lori said, the colors are going to be different. It's going to probably look different. Your workflow is going to be the same though. I'm still going to add rows. I'm still going to add columns. And every time I add a page, it's going to be ready for you to just throw in content. And it's going to look like the same as any other page from any other department, except for the content you add. So you'll be able working with a template that's pretty much good to go for you, and you just need to add the content in.
So I'm going to jump in. I think what you're getting at is if people are experimenting and building some pages in the sandbox, and then they say they want to move them over to the new site, like the layout, the rows, the widgets, those things will all be the same when it transfers over, like they build it out on the new site. But like the theming as far as the color or like the standards with the navigation, those will look different, but the content between the header and the footer it'll be that same basic format, whether it's in the sandbox or on our site. I think that does that answer your question, Heidi?
Yes, I'm just trying to figure out, if we can get into the sandbox and we play in there, just making sure everything if the whatever themes just automatically apply as they move over so that we can, make sure that things look the way that we want them to. Because I know we've got kind of a warp speed. Maybe it doesn't. I know December's a ways away, but it's warp speed to me.
Yeah. And I don't think, there may be a little tweaking that we want to do once it like would move over to like the actual site. But I think it will be minimal, and I'm hoping we'll have the actual site itself with all of our themes and the design applied to it done pretty quickly. So hopefully we won't be in the sandbox for long. I see Marianne's got her hand up.
Oh, yes, Marion.
Thank you. And thanks, Cassie. I think you probably answered it, but just, for my clarification, Lori and Chase. So when DNRC experiments and plays in the sandbox and they're adding the rows and columns and pictures, when production is ready, will they be recreating those things in the new site when they're not in the sandbox?
Chase, I'll take that one for you. This is Caitlin.
Okay.
If you guys are adding any content into the sandbox site itself, we will take care of moving it to the actual DNRC site. The only reason we have a sandbox site for you guys right now is just to let us finish developing the overall design, look and feel within that site. So if you create anything, we will take care of migrating it over so you guys aren't doing double work.
Thanks, Caitlin.
Awesome. So when,
Julio?
I don't want to be pushy, like when will we the access to the sandbox to get to play in there and just start pushing buttons?
You actually have access right now. I will send out an email to the group as soon as we are wrapped up with the training with at least our initial documentation as well. Just note that is going to be sort of a living document as we keep going through these trainings, see where we need to expand on some of that information or things that were covered that you guys have asked questions on. So I will get that sent out here shortly, and then you guys can go ahead and play around in there.
Awesome.
And Caitlin, sorry, Marianne, again, I think the training, because there are other groups, I think it continues through the end of next week, right? I think the 7th is the last training.
Correct. I can still send out the information at this point to let you guys get in there, start playing around. That won't have any impact on the rest of our trainings.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. And do we have any other questions for this? No one? All right. I think that's it then. I don't think there was anything else. I covered everything I had. And yeah, and it's going to come easy to you once you're in there playing around, adding stuff, editing. No better way than to just be in the nitty gritty and actually working on it. So, and the documentation will provide, pull it up, follow it along, and you'll pick it up very fast. By the end of the day, Cascade, if you click on enough stuff, you will eventually get what you want done.
Thank you so much. This was really helpful. It helps us kind of see what we can do and what it looks like. And anyway, I really appreciate this. Thank you. Of
course, I'm happy to help.
you,
I know
guys.
Cascade has a lot. Thank you.
All right. Anything else?
I'm out of stuff. I don't think we have any questions.
We could probably give them back 10 minutes then, and we'll talk to you guys next time.
All right.
And Chase, thank you so much for the great information. And Heidi, if your folks are running into questions that they've got as they're diving into the sandbox, I think we'll maybe try to batch up some of those questions, and we can get those routed through you, and we can get them up to the SITSD team so we can address those. Because if we've got questions within CARD, I'm sure we'll have them within other divisions as well. So we'll try to group those together.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds like a really good plan. I mean, you guys
It'll
will get
help.
bombarded too.
Well, and it helps us too because we can add those into the manual. If they're common questions, we want them in there. So please always send us stuff.
Well, thanks again, Chase. Really appreciate it. And Lori, Caitlin, and Marianne, the SITSD team, for taking time this morning, and all the CARD folks for jumping on as well.
Happy to help.
Good.
I'm glad you guys sat down and enjoyed my TED Talk.
Have a good afternoon, you guys.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.